Hey there, and welcome to a new episode of the Dietitian Success Podcast. I'm your host, Krista Kolajesic. I am the founder of Dietitian Success Center, and this is the business, marketing, and entrepreneurship podcast for registered dietitians. And every week, I start with a little personal update, and then I like to tackle 3 very common business and entrepreneurship questions that we get, whether it's in our entrepreneurship membership, in the Dietitian Success Center community forum, in the conversations that I'm having individually with dietitians all the time about business and entrepreneurship, things that come up on LinkedIn. The questions, the inspiration are truly everywhere. And I think what's so interesting about when you decide to niche into a target audience, no matter how broad or how narrow it is, when you sort of make that decision to lean into a specific area, the inspiration comes up everywhere. You know, you start to then get fed content about that topic, and it just becomes really interesting. Sorry, if you're watching the video, I'm looking over because I saw nobody's home, but I saw a creepy shadow moving past my doors. Anyways, it was my dog, so it's fine. He looked a lot larger. He looked very human-sized. Anyways, that stopped me in my tracks for a second. But anyways, all is good. Yeah, the inspiration just is everywhere. I talk about dietitian entrepreneurship, and so consequently, I see dietitian entrepreneurship topics, questions, conversations popping up everywhere. And that's how I create my content. And that should be how you create your content too, is you see it out in the wild and you see people are asking about it, your friends ask you about it, your family asks you about it, you see people talking about it online, you see conversations happening in online spaces, and you have conversations with clients or patients in your work, and that makes for the best type of content. So all that to say, I thought I would start for my personal update. I thought I would do a little, what am I reading? What am I listening to? What am I watching? In case you're interested or looking for any inspiration for shows and or podcasts and or books. So right now I'm actually not reading any business books. I usually am, but I haven't since I had my second baby. I read before bed now. That's like my reading time. I do like a 5 to 10 minutes before I fall asleep. And I just do not read business books during that time. Like, that's just not for me, because then your brain just gets stirring, and that's not what you want right before bed. And so I am right now, I'm reading on my Kindle the book Yesteryear, which is a really interesting book about a tradwife influencer. So tradwife being short for traditional wife influencer, who actually wakes up as a woman in the 1800s, as an actual traditional wife. One morning, she wakes up in that actual world when she's sort of been like playing this role on Instagram for her audience. And then she actually wakes up in that time period. So it's actually pretty interesting. I've been seeing a lot about it on Goodreads and Fable. So I'm a bit of a book nerd. So if you look me up on Fable or Goodreads, because you can find all the books that I read and recommend there. So that's what I'm reading. And then I'm listening to the audiobook called Shantaram, which is a very famous book. I think the audiobook is like 45 hours long or something wild like that. I think I have 19 hours left. So I feel like I've been listening to it for like months, but it's a pretty epic story. It's actually based on a true story. It's pretty fascinating. It's about a guy who was in jail in, I think, Australia or New Zealand, and escapes from jail, moves to Bombay, and it's about his life of like crime, essentially, in Bombay. It's pretty interesting. So I would definitely recommend that. You can actually get it for free as an audiobook with Spotify Premium. A lot of people don't know that about Spotify Premium. You can get amazing access to audiobooks for no extra charge. So highly recommend that. And then what am I listening to for podcasts? I am listening to one that I really like and actually, I only know it by the host's name, but I'm actually wondering if the show is called something different. I don't think it is. No, it's the Nathan Barry Show. If you're looking for business and entrepreneurship, I really like that podcast. He's actually the founder of Kit. And I know a lot of you listening are Kit users. Kit is an email marketing platform. He sits down with creative entrepreneurs and they talk through business strategy. And yeah, I just find it really good. So I've been listening to that a lot lately. What I am watching, okay, don't judge me on this one because I know we all have different taste in TV. Depending on what your preference is, you might listen to this and be like, wait, what? But I am a big reality TV girly. I really like reality TV. I've been a Survivor fan like from day one. So my husband and I are watching season 50 of Survivor right now. Season 50 of Survivor, we are watching Our Friends and Neighbors on Apple TV. Highly recommend that one. That's a great show with John Hamm. We are watching... what else am I watching? I'm watching Temptation Island on Netflix. And what else are we watching? Oh, the new one with Kate Hudson, Match Point. Is that what it's called? I think it's called that. Anyways, it's where Kate Hudson takes over a NBA team. And it's a good one. Season 2 just came out. So those are some of the things that we're watching in case you needed some ideas, in case you needed some inspiration. Okay. So let's get into the topics for today. So the first topic we're going to talk about is SEO. Second topic, sales funnels. And third topic is, should I outsource my Instagram? Okay, let's dive in. So the first topic on SEO, I've heard SEO is important for my dietitian business, but I have no idea where to start or if it's even worth my time. Can you break down what SEO actually is and how dietitians can use it to grow their online presence? So if you are a seasoned SEOer, this is still going to be important for you because SEO is now sort of synonymous with AEO, which is AI engine optimization, which is sort of a more advanced SEO concept. So we'll talk about that in a second. But just in terms of the basics for those who are new to SEO, SEO is essentially where you add keywords to your website so that Google recognizes it as being related to whatever topic you talk about or work in. And so it essentially then matches those keywords on your website to people who are searching those keywords on Google. So for example, if I'm searching for oncology dietitian on Google, as long as I have keywords related to oncology dietitian on my website, the goal is then that Google will show my website to those people. Now, this is a simplified version. That's not really how it works because there's a lot of different factors that enhance, increase, or decrease your website SEO. So, how competitive is that keyword? So if there's hundreds and thousands of other websites that are trying to cater to people who are searching oncology dietitian, it's going to be a lot harder for my website to rank on the first page of Google for that keyword. And so the idea being that we incorporate as many related keywords as we possibly can on our website so that our website, Google starts recognizing our website as, oh, hey, this is a website that has authority in the world of nutrition and oncology. And so therefore, we should share it with more people. We should show it to more people who are searching for these types of keywords and topics in Google. And so there's lots of things we can do on our website to enhance our SEO, but blogging is actually one of those strategies. So having a blog on our website nowadays is not necessarily, the intent of it is not necessarily to have people actually read our blog posts. The intent of it is actually to help to include more keywords on your website so that Google, recognizes your website as something that is high value, that has a lot of content related to this topic, and it wants to show it to more people. And so SEO is essential. If you're going to have a website as a dietitian, you have to consider SEO. There's actually no point in having a website if you haven't considered or thought about SEO. So you have to do it. You just have to do it. So yes, it is worth your time. Period. End of story. It is worth your time. And it doesn't have to be overly complicated. And we can use AI tools. This is an incredible usage for AI tools in helping you identify keywords, in helping you figure out how to add keywords to different pages of your website, in terms of helping you come up with content topics for blog posts, in terms of helping you craft those blog posts. Like there's just so many. SEO has never been easier to do from a time constraints perspective. I don't have a lot of time. Even 2 years ago, when we wanted to write another SEO optimized blog post, we were writing that from scratch. We didn't have AI tools to help us create that content. And we did all of the keyword research ourselves. These were processes that took a lot of time and energy. And now it's just easier than it's ever been before. We have an entire course on this within the Dietitian Success Center Entrepreneurship membership, by the way. So that is something that if you don't know anything about this, like that's going to walk you through it. And we're also doing some office hours coming up over the next couple months on basic blogging tactics and advanced blogging and SEO tactics. So then I alluded to before AEO, which is AI engine optimization. So how do AI tools now start to recognize and recommend your website? And there's a very specific way to craft your blog posts, to craft your website pages, to make sure that tools like ChatGPT are actually recommending your website or referencing your website for various keywords. So it's really interesting, but it's actually essential. Your website is really going to do nothing for you unless you optimize it for SEO. It's not that complicated. It doesn't need to be that complicated, but it is so important. We are trying to meet people where they are at, right? We're trying to ensure that when somebody is searching for us, we actually show up for them. We're there. We're like, hey, I have the services or the product that is going to help to solve your problem. Okay. So that's really the basics of SEO, but it, again, is something we talk about a lot within the entrepreneurship membership. Okay, second topic, I keep hearing about sales funnels, but honestly, the whole concept feels really bro marketing and not aligned with how I want to show up in my business. Do dietitians actually need one? And if so, what does that look like without the sleazy tactics or without feeling salesy? Yeah, I completely hear you and feel you. When I feel the same when I hear the term sales funnel. I think of and maybe a lot of you weren't around you weren't in the business space 5 to 10 years ago when platforms like ClickFunnels were really big and manipulation tactics were a thing in the business and marketing world, and it was just broy. And I don't necessarily see that as much anymore, but I do think that sales funnels have a bit of a stigma, and I agree. I am so anti sleazy bro marketing-y tactics. So let's talk about how to do this in a way that's not salesy and weird and sleazy. Okay. So the principle of a sales funnel at its core, at its most basic level of understanding is simply, and we can actually picture a funnel in our minds. So an inverted pyramid, we're picturing a funnel where it's the widest at the top and it's the most narrow at the bottom. And at the very bottom, you have your product. Whatever you are selling. Doesn't matter if it's one-on-one services or an online course or whatever, but that is at the very bottom of your funnel. At the top of your funnel is where you are trying to bring people into your world. So the idea being that you bring as many people as you can into the top of your funnel, and then some of those people will continue to progress down your funnel as they learn more about what you do, what you offer. They build the know, like, and trust factor with you. And then that audience sort of gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And some of those people will then become a paying customer or a paying client or will purchase what you have to offer. Now, the reason why it's a funnel is because not everyone who hears about you or hears about your offer or who enters your funnel will become a paying customer, right? So that's why it's the widest at the top. We have the most people coming in at the top, and then those people kind of slim down or skim themselves down as we move down the funnel. And so the other reason why it's the widest at the top is because we are trying to bring as many of our ideal client into our funnel as possible. So there's a lot of different ways that we can run funnels. However, the most common and the one that I find works the best is the email marketing funnel, which is essentially where we have a freebie lead magnet, and that is at the very top of our funnel. That is the widest point on our funnel. And it is a free resource that we create that is designed to attract our ideal client. That's why it's called a magnet. It is a lead magnet because we are attracting leads, so ideal clients to our business. So people download our freebie lead magnet, and then they are added to, in exchange, they are added to our email list. So there's an exchange of value here. I'm giving you my freebie lead magnet, and in exchange, you are giving me your email address. So they're added to your email list, and then they go through what we call a nurture sequence. So a nurture sequence is a series of emails that are designed to build the know, like, and trust factor with you. And so to get people to know you, to like what you have to say, your perspectives, your philosophies around nutrition or whatever it is that you're selling. And then the trust factor to say, hey, okay, you actually do know what you're talking about. I actually trust you. I trust that you're not trying to scam me, or you're not trying to sell me something I don't need, or, I like what you have to say. I really believe in what you have to say. The know, like, and trust factor. So those emails are really designed for that purpose, because it's not very often that somebody's going to actually enter your world and automatically be ready to purchase, right? The intent of a funnel, of an email funnel specifically, is to be able to nurture people so that they are ready to buy when they are ready to buy, right? And we don't just lose them because they landed on our website and then they're like, I'm not really ready for this right now. Okay, bye. And they're gone. And we never hear from them again, right? We're trying to capture those leads, and we're trying to educate them and provide them with information about what we have to offer so that when they're ready, we are there for them. And so that is really, and then the nurture sequence then leads into the sales. So it's then, okay, then how do we speak about what our paid offer is? Again, it can be one-on-one, it can be products like courses, ebooks, whatever. How do we talk about what we offer in a way that does not feel, and the idea of I don't want to feel salesy is I totally get that. But at the same time, we have to stop stigmatizing sales. We really have to stop that sort of narrative, because selling is okay. It's okay to sell something of value that you have to offer that will help other people. There are certain ways that you can do it, which are going to feel a lot more authentic and are going to feel a lot more purpose-driven, and you don't have to feel icky selling your thing. If you do feel icky, it might not be the right sales tactic for you. So selling, I think people think of selling in a box, and they have a very narrow definition of what it means to sell or to talk about what you offer. And it just doesn't have to be that way. It's really about talking about the features and then the benefits. How is the thing that you are selling going to actually help someone? What does that look like? There's so many different tactics we can use here. But anyways, all that to say, it does not need to be salesy. That's the whole point in the funnel, is how do we bring people along from being a cold lead, which is somebody who's really never heard of you before, to being a warm lead, to being a hot lead, to being somebody who actually wants to buy from you. And, I do think a sales funnel is always important. I think you should always have a sales funnel for your business, regardless of whether, again, you're doing one-on-one private practice or you have a digital product that you're selling, because people always need a level of know, like, and trust in order to say yes. And I just think you're doing your business a disservice if you don't have that set up. So yeah, definitely a sales funnel is essential. I talk about this a lot with dietitians in the entrepreneurship membership, and we design sales funnels a lot. So what is the freebie lead magnet you're going to create? What is the nurture sequence that you're going to lead people through? And then how do you sell in a way that feels good for you? So yes, sales funnels. Okay. And then number 3. So I'm trying to figure out my Instagram strategy, and I'm honestly not sure if I should be managing it myself, whether I should be stepping back from it completely or hiring someone to help. How do I know which option is the right fit for where I'm at in my business? Okay, so I think this is a really interesting and thoughtful question, and it's very multifaceted, as with every entrepreneurship related question. So it's kind of a case-by-case basis, but let me tell you some of the sort of principles or concepts that I use to be able to determine what makes the most sense here. So the first question I would ask you is, what is your business goal and your business objective? Because not every business needs to have an Instagram presence. And I have a lot of conversations with dietitians who feel a sort of pressure around needing to be on Instagram, and that may actually not be a need for you. Just depending on your business model, there are certain things that I found where social media really makes sense for you to have an active presence and to really work on growing your presence. But then there's also situations where you don't necessarily need it if you have other avenues for which you're bringing in clients. So it's never you absolutely need to do this. So that's the first question that I ask is like, okay, is this really something that you need or is it not? And if the answer is yes, and this is a marketing tactic that aligns with your overall business goals and business vision, then I think we need to really talk about, before you make the decision to outsource it, we need to really dissect like what is the issue that's happening right now. Because outsourcing, sometimes there's this sort of belief or this idea that outsourcing is always going to be the magic bullet. I use the term magic bullet a lot in business. And what I mean by that is like, this is going to be the thing that works and changes everything. And that's just not necessarily true. And this is absolutely like, there is no, I am not saying anything negative about social media managers out there. I think they can be absolutely amazing. I've had great experiences with social media managers in the past. However, when we're talking about, business objectives and wanting to accomplish your business objectives, it's not always going to be the magic bullet. And the reason why that is because in order to create really good, compelling content on platforms like Instagram, you have to have a deep understanding of who your ideal client is and what are the pain points that they have and what are the challenges that they have. And oftentimes that deep understanding, that depth, comes from you having worked with these people before, or just knowing them because you've worked with them in your 9-to-5, you've been them, you have friends that are these people, you've worked with clients in this space, so you understand their pain points. And a third party who's coming in and not necessarily having that understanding of your ideal client, there may then be that disconnect between the content that they are trying to create and what is actually going to resonate with your ideal client. So it's not necessarily, that's why I say it's not necessarily always going to be the magic bullet. And a lot of times, especially if you're a dietitian and you're hiring somebody who is not a dietitian, there can be major issues there too, because the language we use, the way we talk about things is very specific. And if you're not a dietitian, you're not going to get that. Now, it also depends on the type of how you are outsourcing your Instagram. So I've had many experiences where I've worked with many different social media managers over the past, and there have been scenarios where I've done a full outsource. So they've created the content and the copy, and we have been there to just review it. There's been scenarios where I have created the concepts and then they've just executed. So they've just done the design work in Canva and written the captions. So there's different ways to do it as well. But again, I just think, it's just not always the complete solution that we think that it's going to be. And so then going back to, I would dissect what is actually the problem here. My questions to you would be, have you just not figured out a way to do Instagram that works for you yet? Because a lot of times we see how other people are doing things and we think to ourselves, well, I have to do that. I remember I had this thought a lot when Reels first came out, and I was so intimidated by the idea of Instagram Reels because I was I'm never going to be the type of person who dances in front of my camera to create an Instagram reel. So therefore, the story I then told myself was, oh, Reels are not for me. I'm not going to do this. And in reality, this is where creativity comes into place. And this is where we can ask ourselves, well, social media and Instagram content creation does not take one shape or form. I can decide for myself what kind of content I actually want to create and what actually feels fun and exciting for me to do and something that I can be consistent with. So like, I know for me, personally, I will never be the type of person who will be able to sit down and say, I'm going to create 3 Instagram posts for this week, and I'm going to create the reels for them, and I'm going to create the Canva posts for them, and I'm going to create the carousels, and I'm going to write all the captions, and I'm going to schedule them out in my Instagram app. Like, I will never be that person because that's just not how I liked. I just don't want to do that. And if it's something that I honestly don't want to do, I'm not going to be consistent with it. However, what I can be really consistent with is this podcast because I love it. I love recording this podcast every week. I've been able to do it consistently over 250 episodes now because I like it, because I actually enjoy doing it. It's not hard for me to sit down at my mic and record a podcast episode every week. So therefore, what I can then do is use that podcast transcript to then help me create my social posts. So I use AI tools like Claude or ChatGPT. I use Claude now because I love it. Claude is awesome, by the way, if you haven't checked it out. We used to use ChatGPT, now I use Claude. I still use Chat for certain things, but Claude is amazing for content. And so what I actually do now is I take the podcast transcript and I upload it to Claude and I get it to help me craft my social posts. And it's great because then I can, it's all like my own messaging. It's authentic to me. It's like it's my own thoughts and beliefs and feelings about everything. And then that becomes the content that I can then post consistently. So it's really just about like, how can we do this? That's really the question to ask yourself is like, is there a way for you to do this consistently? And maybe you're just not good at it yet. Maybe it just is hard because you haven't developed the skill yet. But it's like anything. It is a skill. It is a skill that can be developed over time and with practice and with repetition. And maybe it just feels really uncomfortable right now because you just haven't done it enough yet. So that's also what I ask you. And, this can be, and if you're sitting there and you're like, I don't have a podcast, Krista, that's okay. Like this could be, after you hang up with a client off, like following a one-on-one session, it could be popping over to Claude or ChatGPT and recording a voice to text about what you talked about during that session. You don't have to provide any identifying information, nothing like that. So it can just be like, hey, I had this really interesting conversation with a client. They asked me this, and this is how I responded. Now create some Instagram content for me or some concepts that I can use. So it can be easier, I think, than we think that it needs to be. It can be less complicated. It's really just about like sharing your truth and sharing the things that come to you. It doesn't have to be like this perfectly planned out, content pillars, like perfection-y. I think Instagram used to be that way where that sort of thing worked really well. And now it's a lot more like, let's just create off the cuff ad hoc content. And that actually makes our jobs as content creators a little bit easier. So, okay. I hope that was helpful. By the way, on that last one, like if you're sitting there and you're like, Kate, no, still like Instagram, I don't know, I've tried it a lot and it's just not working for me. I really want to try outsourcing it because it's going to help me. Like, I think it'll help me be more consistent. Then okay, cool. But just make sure that what I would recommend there is putting some parameters or some boundaries around it. So understand like, what is the definition of success for you? So is success going to be how many people you drive to your freebie lead magnet? If that is the definition of success, then track that. Like tell yourself, okay, I'm going to hire a social media manager for 3 to 6 months. And my expectation is that we increase the number of people that we drive to the freebie lead magnet. And so set parameters around it, set boundaries around it that will also help you be able to budget for it too, because it's going to cost you money, and ensure and assess whether there is a return on that investment. Okay, well, I hope that was fun. I hope you learned something. I hope you have an awesome rest of your week, and I will see you in the next episode.